So The Boys season 4 has just concluded, and to say that this season was a mixed bag would be the understatement of the century. I'm kind of glad that it is going to end with season 5. That's going to be the final season. Honestly, I really don't think most shows should go beyond 5 or 6 seasons unless they're just firing on all cylinders, killing it, and making a masterpiece. Because once you get beyond the 5, 6 season mark, that's when shows usually tend to go downhill, or they lose that something special that they had early on. I mean, how many times have we seen it? Like Walking Dead, Dexter, like so many different shows after they've gone on past a specific point, and it's usually that like 5 or 6 season point. So I'm glad that they're doing that, but we're going to talk about season 4 a little bit. I'm going to tell you some of my likes, some of my dislikes, some of my concerns, and just kind of go into it off the cuff. I have a couple particular things I want to talk about, but in order to talk about an entire season of a show, I think it might be easier to go by character and character arcs and kind of get into what I really feel about how they're handling some of these characters right now. What I've noticed about this season in particular is that I find myself being very, very much drawn to Homelander's story, the villain story of this arc, but when it comes to the boys themselves, there's a lot of really strange decisions that they made that really kind of turned me off. And to be honest, I'm starting to care less and less about the main characters, which is not good. I should be very heavily invested, especially by season 4, but some of the decisions that they're making and some of the forced drama just really, I just don't really understand how they're going with that. But let me start with some positives. All right. I think the best thing that this season did, and the best character that this show has going right now, is absolutely Homelander. You could say he's one of the best on-screen villains that we have right now, maybe in the past couple of years. And I think that every season they advance him just enough and push his buttons a little further and go a little bit deeper into his psychological state. And every single season he gets a little bit more terrifying because he's just a little bit more unhinged. But at the same time, you know, they do play his character with a lot of nuance and understanding where you can kind of see what made him so fucked up based upon his upbringing. And they do a couple of really interesting things with Homelander this season. One is, of course, that episode where he goes back and confronts the people that experimented on him when he was younger. Probably the best episode of the season, and perhaps the best Homelander sequence that the series has ever had. It was terrifying. It was filled with tension, but there was also that sense of sympathy that you felt for him. But you completely, like, you know, if you were confronted there with Homelander, you would be shitting your pants, but in some kind of strange, sadistic way, as just enjoying the journey of a character, you kind of liked that he was getting one over on these people. He is kind of just giving them a taste of their own medicine. But then on the other side, you know, they were just people doing a job. But then where do ethics kind of fall in, where you're just kind of following orders and doing a job, and what is the right thing? And it's a nuanced thing. And I think that's where the show should direct itself a little bit more, because sometimes, you know, the show does feel like it's hitting you over the head with a particular ideology or political message, and I feel like the show thrives the best when we're in that aura of nuance, where it's kind of hard to determine, you know, what you would have done in that situation. So, you know, that episode filled with some extreme dark humor at the same time, where he makes the one scientist character like whack off in front of everybody, which of course is a bit of shock, you know, value that the show has always had. But at the same time, the point of that scene was to humiliate him, the same way that Homelander himself felt, you know, humiliated when they would perform all these experiments on him. So that was definitely, I think, the best episode of the entire season. Definitely stand out. But the other great thing that they do with Homelander this season is his relationship with his son, named Ryan. Hey, what up? Glad to have some Ryan representation here. And they do a lot of great things with this too, because it all comes back to him wanting to be cared for, you know, wanting to find some semblance of love in his life, or you know, if he couldn't get it from a parental figure, then he is going to be that parental figure. But at the same time, he approaches it like he does everything else in his life, with complete and utter insanity and dominance that just kind of ruins the entire relationship to begin with, and just leads him to not being able to connect or be able to, you know, have any kind of love shared between anybody. and the most that he can do is just kind of comply to suck on some titties from Firecracker, which I get it, but it's still denying that sense of a connection. There's also this paranoia that he's going through because he seems to be aging or having some kind of effect with his physicality. Now, they don't really go into heavy detail on this, or if they did at any point, I don't really remember them talking about it, but how his hair is starting to fall out. At the same time, he's still dealing with his psychological damage of talking to different versions of himself within the mirror, and just everything that they're doing with this character has been fantastic. And I think that he is definitely the standout. Anthony Starr portraying Homelander definitely deserves recognition for this role because he's been killing it every step of the way ever since season 1. But I think every single season they advance Homelander a little bit more, and I like what they're doing with him. Ending with the season, spoiler, by the way, this is a complete spoiler season review. Ending with the country going into martial law and basically giving Homelander full reign to do what he wants to and unleash, an army of soups out there to kind of do his bidding. And all of the boys themselves have been captured by the end of the season, ending on a cliffhanger. So now we officially have Homelander in charge. He is not the president, but he may as well be because he has the authority now to do whatever he wants, which is what the series has always been building toward. The other character journey that I really enjoyed this season was with A-Train, who kind of here and there was allowing the boys to do their thing and sometimes giving them information, yada yada. But this season really kind of was the biggest shift in his character. Again, it's nuanced, so it's not like he goes from bad to good, but he finds more benefit helping out the boys than he does dealing with Homelander's, dictatorship within the Seven, or like almost having the Deep having to suck his dick and shit. Like, he really, values also how he was viewed, because there was the stories of him being the superhero and then the revelation that he really wasn't. And so when he finally saves somebody and sees the look in that kid's eyes, and finally actually feels what it's like to be a legitimate superhero, that was a really great moment. There's reconciliation between him and Huey, which I thought was very important because, that's how the whole series started, was A-Train killed Huey's girlfriend. So I enjoyed that being in there. And then you have that moment where he shows up and fights against Black Noir and the Deep, basically, outing himself as the rat, as the person that was against the Seven from the inside. And he wasn't in the season finale, so I don't know when he's going to come back in. I thought that was a strange choice to not have him in the finale, but I've really enjoyed his character arc this season. I thought it was done very well. Now I got to go on to things that bothered me, and unfortunately that is mostly with the entire main cast of The Boys. I think even Butcher's storyline, which I think is the best out of all The Boys this season, where he's dealing with the effects of Compound V and he's definitely taking these extreme measures to get done what he wants to, like kidnapping that scientist and chopping off his legs. He goes to some really, really dark places, and it makes sense. I don't know how I feel about the whole, seeing a different personality, or seeing somebody from his past inside of his mind, which is just a version of him talking to himself. I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, so it's cool to see him in the show. But I just don't know how I feel about that, because I feel like that's something that maybe is overdone. But I guess giving him a character to talk to so that we as the audience can see his thought process, maybe that's the point of it. If that's the case, I understand. But yeah. But as far as the other characters go, particularly with, MM, I feel like really doesn't get a whole lot to do this season. As far as Frenchie goes, I forgot that Frenchie was bisexual, I guess. It's been a while since I've seen the other season, so I wasn't expecting this relationship with the other male character in the beginning of the show. Not that I have an issue with that in and of itself, but they've been building Frenchie and Kimiko the whole show. So it did feel like it was a little bit out of left field. I get why they did it, for him to come to terms with his guilt and stuff, but it just felt like it came out of nowhere and was a little bit strange. And then when you finally have him and Kimiko, get together in the final episode of the season, they're immediately ripped apart, which I guess is just drama. But yeah, wasn't a huge fan of the direction of Frenchie's arc in this season. Neither was I with Huey and Starlight. But I think a lot of that for me comes down to how they handled characters in this show going through trauma and dealing with a lot of horrible things that are happening. Because here's my major issue with the season is that sometimes I feel like because The Boys is so outlandish and they pride themselves on the shock value and the shock humor and being like overtly sexual and gory every single episode. And I love me some sex and gore, but it can't be at the expense of characters. And I feel like characters should be the most important thing that your show has going, right? We've been with them for 4 seasons now. We want to see their development. We want to see them grow. We want to care about them. And sometimes I feel like the show puts caring about the characters on the back burner so that it can focus on being as shocking as possible and showing you the most bizarre, crazy, kind of sexual shit that it possibly can. Like season 3 had the whole like little Ant-Man character inside the dick, but those were like ancillary characters that weren't really that important. But when you're dealing with our main characters, I want to care about them. And sometimes I feel like this show completely disregards that in favor of doing something shocking. So let me tell you what I mean. So when it comes to Huey's character, there's this whole thing with his dad about to pass away, which I thought was a very emotional episode. Simon Pegg did a fantastic job in his final moments, dealing with not knowing what was going on, losing his mind, and then having that moment where Huey is with his dad as he passes away. Really, really emotional, dark, serious moment of the show, right? It's a time for the show to get serious. But then in the very next episode, they have Huey go undercover and he gets locked within a sex dungeon, having all of these bizarre sexual things performed on him, and it's completely played off as a joke. And listen, I am not offended by that scene, but at the same time, I think it does disservice to your character to not allow them to process some huge event that just happened and then all of a sudden just throw them into some shocking humor moment in order to just have that moment in the show where they want to do Hero-gasm Part 2. Instead of the orgy, let's just do cake farts and all of these, bizarre things to Huey. But like they don't deal with that with his character, right? And here's the other thing. And again, I'm not offended by the scene. I'm just looking at it from a character standpoint, and I'm looking at kind of the inconsistency of the show. Because if that scene were to have happened to Starlight or Kimiko, they're strapped to a table and all of these, disgusting sexual acts are performed on them, that would have been horrific, right? I mean, we established in the very first episode that these things are horrific with what happened to Starlight, and it's treated seriously. And then you do it to Huey, and it's treated as a joke, And is that because he's a male character, so if it happens to him, it's supposed to be funny? Or is that just because, we've kind of stopped caring about the damage that this does to our characters psychologically, and we're just going to use it as playful shock humor kind of thing instead of having it be something that would actually affect the character, particularly after his father just passed away. And then they push it even further and they have the scene where the shapeshifter takes the form of Starlight and has sex with Huey a couple of times. So and look, all of these things happening individually, it's not that I would have a problem with them happening, but I just feel like they don't deal with the consequences. They're not, Huey is just kind of continuing business as usual after these things happen. And it just seems, I don't know, it just seems wrong. It just seems like, okay, we got to write the next scene. We got to continue the story. Like, we can't deal with our characters dealing with the repercussions of something. We just move on to the next thing. And it's just like everything that Huey has been through this season, I just feel like you should be dealing with that. That should be an important part of the character. And it hasn't been. Or at least I don't feel like it has been. Or I don't feel like it's been treated as seriously as it should. And I know this is a series about, superheroes and crazy shit happens, but that doesn't mean that you can't take it seriously. That doesn't mean that you can't take the drama in a serious direction. That doesn't mean that you can't take your characters and have them actually go through things and have it actually mean something. And I feel like everything they did with Huey's character and Starlight as well this season has just kind of been like, let's have this weird shit happen, and then let's move on to the next thing, and just not care what that does to a person. And that is not how the show was back in season 1, when these things actually mattered. And now I feel like they're just trying to put whatever kind of shock humor that they can into the show, thinking that that's the draw, when really the draw should be the characters. But I don't know, rant over. Now, I know a lot of people were complaining about this season because of like the political satire that's in the show, and I'm not a deeply political person whatsoever. I'm not on either side of the spectrum. I try to just make up my own mind. I have views and opinions that I agree with on the right and on the left. I'm just a dude, all right? And I don't claim to be like some political expert or anything. I just scroll through my Twitter feed and see what's going on in the world, right? That's basically what I do, and I make my own opinion after that. So I don't have any allegiance to any political ideology. But a lot of people were upset at this season for like excessively poking fun at the right, right? The right, yeah. And although I'm fine with it, because I'm fine with satire and I'm fine with making fun of everybody, I feel like everybody should be equally on the chopping block to be made fun of. I do see where they're coming from to a degree, because I do see that this season in particular, was very heavy on that. Again, I'm not offended by it, but I can at least understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, I feel like The Boys still does make fun of everybody. It might have been a little bit too far on one side for this season for some people, which, is what it is. But the show in itself, I feel like satirizes, that was kind of like one of the main draws of the beginning of the show, is that it satirizes everything that's going on. Like the way that Vogt makes all of these, propaganda, promotional videos and movies and stuff like that, and how the things that we see on the media influence people and everything, and how darker things are happening behind the scenes that normal, everyday people don't know about, taking the most basic concept of superheroes that are meant to be this hope and beacon of light, and really, on the flip side, they're murdering people and, sexually assaulting people and doing all of these horrible things. That's the whole idea of the show. It's like what we see, and what's put out in front of us, and how these corporations and businesses and political ideologies basically try to make you see the world one way, where, The Boys, at least I see the whole point was them, discovering how the world actually is and trying to fight it from the inside. And that's kind of been the entire show. So I don't mind the satire. It doesn't take away from the show with me. My biggest gripe with the show is dealing with its characters, and how I feel like they've done a disservice to most of the characters this season, just not taking them seriously, or not caring about the next stage of their development, basically. What else is there to talk about this season? Sister Sage, I think that she does have ulterior motives that are beyond getting everything up to this level to kind of put Homelander in charge. I think she's kind of doing her own thing. I also like how she periodically lobotomizes herself just to not have to think. I mean, I feel like we all just sometimes just want to not think, and, maybe that's the case. The Deep, I've always hated the Deep. The Deep has always been one of my least favorite characters. I hate him so much, this season in particular, because that octopus did nothing wrong. So I'll stand by that. I hate the Deep. I like the new Black Noir. I miss the old Black Noir because he was a badass and he saw cartoon characters in his head, which I kind of do also in my life. But I like the new Black Noir because he's just so, like, awkward humor. He's like, I don't understand my character's motivation, and he'll just like fall asleep on occasion. I like the episode with the zombified sheep. I thought that was fun. It satisfied the horror fan in me, just seeing a bunch of vicious kind of zombie sheep flying, and I like that they flew. that was great. Anything else? Firecracker, I mean, she's fine. She's fine for what she. I mean, she's fine. I don't know what to say about her. Oh, Ashley. Yeah, Ashley. I liked what they did with her character this season, and very curious about where she is going to go moving forward, because she took the Compound V, and then she starts screaming, and her head starts to look like it's about to explode, and they cut away, and then we don't see her again. So I don't know what is going to happen there, but excited to see what they do with her. I've always kind of liked her. And finally, you know, the season ends with basically all of the boys getting captured, all the humans anyways. Huey's captured, MM is captured, Frenchie is captured. Kimiko screams, which interesting moment to use her actually being vocal or like developing a voice. So she screams. And it was very, you know what? I'll give the show credit for that. That was probably a good moment to do it. I don't know how I feel about, you know, all of this happening within just like a music montage, and like it just becomes something different. You know, it's like it's definitely setting up for the final season, so I get that, but still an emotional moment nonetheless. So they're captured, and Starlight flies away, and I think that's it. So I think that she might be the only. Kimiko does get captured too, yeah. So Starlight might be the only one available. So I imagine season 5 is probably going to build up to a giant climax within the White House, because I think the boys comic ends in the White House, and I know that the storyline in the show is different than the comic, but you know, probably leading in the same direction. I think that we will probably bring back, we saw Soldier Boy as part of the tease at the very end, so, but you know, he wasn't exactly aligned with Homelander or anything, so I don't know if waking him up is going to be a good idea. But if we have Starlight and then A-Train completely switches sides, if Kimiko is there, if they can get Mauve back, and you know, with Butcher, well, he's doing his own thing, but he's got powers also. So you got a good assortment of characters with powers that would be fighting against, you know, what's left of the 7, which is really just Homelander, the Deep, and Black Noir. Well, Firecracker and Sage, yeah, but I feel like, again, Sage kind of has her own agenda, and Firecracker seems like she's going to be out of commission soon anyway, so I don't know. So I do want to see where this goes, and I do hope they go balls to the wall with season 5. I just hope in the final season that they focus a little bit more on the characters themselves rather than just going over the top with shock value, because, you know, we've gone 4 seasons now. We have that. We know the show can do it. So it doesn't necessarily need to try to be topped every single season when it comes to that. Focus on your characters. Give them a good arc. Give us a good finale. Have A-Train's arc, you know, complete all the way over to the other side. Have Homelander go completely unhinged as he should. Butcher's final act. Butcher's definitely going to die by the end of the season, by the end of next season. No doubt about that. Let's have some major character deaths, but let's also, you know, get into the emotion of the characters. Like, we can have positive emotional moments in this show also. We've done it before, so let's, you know, bring it back. Let's be able to actually do that. So, yeah, so where am I in season 4? It's definitely a mixed bag. It's definitely my least favorite season of The Boys so far. Although I do think it had some standout moments, particularly that episode with Homelander torturing the scientist was amazing. But other than that, I didn't hate the season. I just think it's the weakest so far, and I hope that they can stick the landing with season 5, and I'm hoping for the best. So in, you know, 2-3 years when season 5 comes out, I'll talk about that. Anyways, guys, if you watched all of The Boys season 4, let me know what you think about it down below. Leave your likes, dislikes, the things you enjoyed about the seasons, things you didn't. I thought it was a really mixed bag. I don't know where I would really rank the seasons of The Boys. I like season 3 a lot, so I might go 3, 1, 2, 4 at this point, but it's been a while since I've watched the other seasons, so I don't know. Anyways, guys, tell me what you thought down below. Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, guys. Please give the video a like and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.